Hi there, Alfredo here. How can we manage complex operations and processes of organizations that charge their clients using projects, but they also need to use inventory items as part of the ongoing projects, inventory items that they want to manufacture through production planning and production orders and move across maybe different locations using warehouse management. Now we have three modules essentially: projects, manufacturing, and warehouse management, and they all must work together seamlessly. Can we do that in Business Central? Can we use so much complexity? Well, in this video, I will show you that we absolutely can, and in fact, once the setup and the processes are well defined and the configuration is right, this kind of complexity is actually a lot easier to manage within one system as opposed to having imports and exports and creating other applications, because Business Central can actually support that level of complexity. And we will see that with an example. We are now looking at a project card in Business Central, and this is a simple project for an installation of this machine S200 semi-automatic. And I have different phases with starts and end dates, and this is part of the project. It's pure project management. We're not going to spend too much time on the project side of Business Central because we're going to talk about warehouse management and manufacturing for items that are expensed and billed in a project. So how do we find the item or the items that we need to transact? Well, it's actually a lot easier than what you might think. So first of all, I can, of course, open the project planning lines and find everything, every planning lines. You know, a planning line is something that we plan, a task, which is grouped under a phase, which of course are grouped under a project. And here I can see the items, resources, and of course locations, quantity, and so on. But this is a simple project with only a few lines. In reality, when an organization needs a kind of complexity, project management, manufacturing, and warehouse management, chances are you will find a project with hundreds of lines, and scrolling through long lists using filters might not be ideal. That's why I like to use the fact box, which tells me under the project details fact box here, tells me the budget cost, the actual cost, and the billable price and invoiced price. And it does a very good job for me because it splits the costs into the three categories that we can use for planning lines. We can use resources, time of an engineer doing installation in this case, the actual item or items, and the general ledger accounts that we use for direct billing or costs. In this case, you can see the billable price gives me 3,100. This is, I guess, British pounds. Yes, because this is a Great Britain sandbox. So this is 3,100 British pounds of billable price. But I also have a budgeted costs of 1,865. If I click this amount here, this number, I can see the budgeted items. And here you can see that I have a budget item and a budget and billable items. What is the difference here? In very simple terms, and a planning line for an item where type is budget is an item that we expense, and we don't recharge it to the client. In this case, it's just a pump that we will use, but the cost, what we will bill, the cost, it's content that we incur, but the price is essentially rolled up into this S210. And in fact, if I move to the billable price, you can see this is much higher, not just because the billable price is higher than the cost, you can clearly see that here. It's also because we have items that we bill to the client, but for which we don't expense a cost. because these are non-inventory items. You can see configuration and installation. I can absolutely register costs associated to installation and configuration, but I'd rather do that using resources, because the time it takes an engineer to do installation and configuration drives the cost, not really the configuration as the actual non-inventory items. You can see here there is flexibility. But the most important part here is that we are going to budget, therefore expense, this semi-automatic S210 and bill to the client for this item as part of the project, which means now we have two opportunities. Number one, we can handle this item through warehouse management activities, including full warehouse management system with direct picks and put away. But also we can manufacture this item, because an item of type budget, so which means we expense throughout the project, creates demand that the planning engine will see. And I can actually look at the, you can see the order promising. That is essentially the planning engine that I can run right now. And you can see I have available to promise and capable to promise. So I can actually run a MPS plan from the project and let Business Central's planning engine create a production order for me that will be linked to the project. So planning, production planning and projects, you can clearly see they work perfectly fine together. So let's look at the warehouse part now, because you can see I have a location main here. And in my location main, the main warehouse, I don't use any warehouse activities. So let's see what happens if I check the project planning lines for my task. Actually, let me go in edit mode for my task delivery. When I know that I have the, there we go, this is my item. And you can see the project tasks, the task card is actually quite useful, because it tells me that I can manage this, all the tasks or the planning lines in this task through warehouse management. And so if I change now, I changed it before. So let me go back to main and let me show you what happens. This is a confirmation message that we get when we change the location on an order. And the system tells me that I have changed the location on the order, but it has not been changed on the order lines. It works on sales orders, it works on purchase orders, it works on projects. The principle is the same, exactly the same. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to change back to white warehouse, because this is a warehouse with full WMS capabilities. And note how the system has automatically assigned a bin code to this project task. That happens not because the bin code is a default bin. It's got nothing to do with default and fixed bins here. It's because the location is set up with a to project code. And this is the bin that Business Central is finding and applying to the task and therefore to the planning line. And that is a consumption bin. The item will be placed here. And in a way, it's your shipment bin. And notice how the terminology is consistent throughout the application. We have the to project bin, but we also have the to assembly bin, where the components will go before they are consumed. Same happens in production. We have the to production bin, where we consume components, and the from production bin, where we get the finished item. You can see how the terminology is pretty much the same across the entire system, right? So if we take a step back and trying to understand how the business operates and how the system takes care of demand and supply and uses warehouse management features within a location with this setup, you can see that the same principles applies everywhere in the system. So a lot simpler than what you might think. So now we have the correct location here, which again, we just got the message. We know that it's not going to update my my planning line, and therefore I need to fix it here. So let me filter project planning lines using items, and there we go. I don't really care about what is non-inventory, because what I really care about what I need to ship to the client. We don't really ship items on projects, but you get the idea. And now I need to change to white warehouse, and the system has thought for a moment. I'm going to change this one too, because even though we don't see it, the system has also updated the bin code. And it uses the same principle. You can see, there we go. This is my project bin from where this semi-automatic item will be consumed. So now we have the opportunity to plan for this item. We need to create the output of this item through a production order. And then we can use warehouse management features and even transfer orders if you want to use a multi-location system, using a distribution system. We can actually pick the item from shop floor, send it to the other location, use an in-transit location, place it in a goods in area, and then use warehouse picks to pick it and place it in a bin from where it will be consumed. The equivalent of a sales shipment now will be the project journal, the project consumption, which is the topic of the next video.